With a new Formula E season beginning this week, assuming you're not watching this after the Mexico City race took place, I thought it would be fitting that for this week, we would be doing a special Formula E week of the Street Track Failures series, taking a look back at some circuits that left an impact in their short lifespan, or depending on your opinion of said tracks, went by as quietly as the cars themselves, making no impact during its existence. And no, I'm totally not whatsoever doing this to get rid of a load of Formula E circuits from my track suggestions list. Not at all. Completely false. W-R-O-N-G. Wrong. Okay, that should have convinced them otherwise. However, if we're talking about circuits that left an impression on racing fans around the world, I think you'd be very hard pressed to find a single soul who would argue that this track didn't make a positive impact on the series, the country, and to be honest, motor racing as a whole. As you already know just from having clicked on this video, I am of course talking about the Cape Town Street Circuit, used last season by Formula E, but is not on the calendar for this upcoming season. There are hopes that this may come back for the 2025 season, however I'll talk about that later on though, as I do have a fair number of thoughts on that. In the meantime, I'll do what is now customary in these videos, which is run through all kinds of facts that people who have watched this series before have become all too familiar with now. So, track length, 1.8 miles / 2.9 kilometers. It has 12 turns, with 8 to the left and 4 to the right. And with all those details gone over, it's about time we had a look at this track. And what a track it is. Across the start-finish straight you go, which very much isn't straight in any way whatsoever, before you head to turn 1. A fantastic double apex left-hander. The blind entry to the corner makes picking out a braking point incredibly difficult. And to make it even harder, the car is incredibly unsettled as you go on the brakes, with the back end constantly wanting to snap you out of line, and drag you ever closer to the outside wall. Not also forgetting that the braking zone as well is curved to the left, making it ever more challenging to hit the apexes necessary. Perhaps with all these challenges, it isn't surprising that some of the drivers got it wrong. In fact, this corner is so awesome that you forget that turn 1 is actually a 90-degree left-hander, and to be quite honest, I couldn't care less. It's one of the best 90-degree corners that has ever existed. Avoiding the Tech Pro barrier on the right hand side as you get on the power, you head up to the next bends going the wrong direction, before a couple of slight kinks to the right bring you to turns 2 and 3. Yet another awesome section. This combination might as well be one fast double apex corner. A corner that's all about bravery. How much commitment are you willing to take here? How many spare pairs of underpants do you have? Because this is not a corner for the faint of heart. Turn 2 would probably be flat on its own, but you'd be carrying too much speed for turn 3, which does require a bit of a lift, but not too much as to not lose time. A delicate balance of speed and precision. Not to mention how much undulation this section has. A crest at turn 2 before going back down again for turn 3 where a sizable bump can easily throw your car sideways. An absolutely fantastic couple of corners, potentially the best we've seen in Formula E. Although in my opinion that might be rivalled by a different section on this circuit. In the meantime though, it's down another flat out section of the Cape Town streets, and on a seemingly never ending right-hander before another tricky braking zone up to turns 4, 5 and 6. Although to be honest, there's no getting away from the fact that in essence, it's a speed breaker style chicane, utilising a roundabout where you take the second exit. Geez, I wouldn't want to be the automated voice of a satellite navigation system on this track. In 200 metres, at the roundabout, in 100 metres, in 50 metres, take the second... Oh, forget it, I can't keep up with this. The other side of the roundabout was left open, which does look a bit odd, because ignoring the obvious fact that you're going to get a penalty, this would be the fastest way to get through this section. From a sporting perspective, it would perhaps be better to close this off, albeit for safety reasons, this is probably the best thing to do. Back onto the straight you head, where it's imperative you get as close to the right hand wall as you can to give you the best entry to the 100-degree left-hander that comes up. This takes you onto Beach Road, because it's near a beach. The road once again squiggles along with its not straight straights before you come up to perhaps the most daunting part of the circuit, the turns 8 and 9 complex. You arrive with a fast right-hander that sets you up for a double apex left-hander. It's not quite as fast as turns 2 and 3, but with the awkwardly placed road imperfections, it's arguably even harder than the prior example, particularly at the entry point to turn 8. Turning in, the rear end will hit a bump and loosen it once again, and there's little you can do to stop yourself having a big crunch into the wall. And what's more is that if you do have a crash, your destroyed race car will be stuck on the racing line, with drivers being unable to see if a car is there, meaning you'll have to trust that the yellow flags are out at the right time to warn you of the impending peril that lay ahead. That being said, what's wrong with a challenging corner such as this? A bit like doing a good lap at Spa, it's very satisfying if you get it right. Afterwards is a small straight that brings you to a rare piece of street track normality on this circuit, in the form of a traditional, bog-standard 90-degree left-hander. Yet despite this, it was one of the turns that caused the most problems. Perhaps this rare dose of reality caught the drivers out. Then it's on to the last few turns, with the track width once again getting narrower. An incredibly bumpy entry to turn 11 means that a small confidence lift is required, along with making sure that you stay as close to the left-hand side wall as possible to get the best entry that you can for turn 12. Yet another fast, bumpy sweeper that's slightly off camber the closer to the inside wall you get. Once again, it's a test of how much confidence you have in the car underneath you, and also yourself. And that rounds off an utterly thrilling lap. Well, a thrilling lap from a viewing perspective. Perhaps if you're in the car, you're either loving every waking millisecond of it, or quivering behind the steering wheel just wanting this insane rollercoaster to finish. Oh, thank goodness, I haven't got to do that again at speed. Wait, you're telling me I've got to do this how many times? Then there's the pits. You enter it by going straight after turn 11, and then you find which team is yours via this hairpin of garages. You come back onto the track just after turn 3. In essence, you miss most of the first sector. The blend back onto the track is quite smooth and doesn't impact the live track, which again is a good thing to see. But this though doesn't stop it being unique all the same. But with that, this concludes our tour of the Cape Town Street Circuit. It's at this point that I usually say why this track is no longer used. However, I can't say for certain why Formula E haven't returned to the city for next season. This event had been intended to take place sooner than 2023, but had been delayed. There was talk of a new 5-year deal being worked on, but that hasn't seemed to have come to fruition yet. There are intentions of bringing this event back for 2025. Alberto Longo, one of Formula E's co-founders, has said about the future of the event, "We remain completely supportive of the local stakeholders and know that they are doing all they can to stage a Formula E race in 2025. What those hurdles are? I'm not sure. However, we've been here before. Talk about a circuit returning to a schedule in the near future, only for it to never appear again. And whilst there have been a number of exceptions, I have an agonising doubt in my mind that this is one of those tracks that we may never see again. However, I'd love to be proven wrong, and indeed I think everyone would be delighted to see this track return. The event apparently brought in around £42.5 million in economic impact, and had been one of the best events from an economic and media standpoint that the city had had in the past 10 years. It was even rated as the best Formula E event of the season by the fans. The event itself was sold out. Yet for whatever reason, we might not ever get to see this track in use ever again. Personally, I think Formula E needs to race at a circuit like this. This was a circuit that added so much to the series, and was the sort of track that Formula E had been missing in its history, I feel. A fast, flowing, bumpy, challenging circuit. Formula E tracks on the most part up to this point had been really tight and technical with fairly low average speeds. Of course, there were reasons for this. The early generations of Formula E car were slower and needed more ways of having braking regeneration possibilities, something that this new car isn't anywhere near as plagued by, meaning that slower circuits, with loads of tight corners, were required for the early generations of car. This was the first Formula E circuit that left a level of nervous anticipation when I watched a car go around it. Similar to the feeling when you see a car go around Spa or Road America or Bathurst. This feeling that if something went awry, mistakes would be punished heavily. It was a track where you could see the drivers physically pushing the limits, with the cars on the ragged edge. If anything, it looks as though this circuit was specifically made for this car and this series. Overtakes were certainly possible. It was in a continent that desperately needs more international motorsport events being held, in a location with stunning backdrops, so much colour and vibrancy as well. It was a real standout in this series. It's these sort of circuits that would be a fantastic addition to the Formula E calendar, and this circuit does not in any respect at all deserve to be a street track failure. However, with the prospect of this event only lasting 1 year, this cannot be considered a success, no matter how amazing this track is. In fact, this is my favourite track that I've so far covered in this series. It's at this moment that I'd be ending the video in a rather melancholic fashion, rather depressed at how such a phenomenal circuit will probably be a one and done affair, and ask you to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, before wishing you a great rest of your day. For this track though, I'll make an exception. If we do indeed see this circuit get used again, by any series, let alone Formula E, then I'll change the thumbnail and title of the video to Was a Street Track Failure. And I long for the day hoping I'll be able to do that, because this is a brilliant, brilliant circuit. With all that being said though, that is going to be it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any other street circuits that you'd like to see featured in this series, then say down in the comment section. I would also be incredibly appreciative if you did hit the like and subscribe buttons, but I've already asked you to do that, so I won't bore you with that again. Oh no, wait, I've done it again anyway. Well, that wasn't very sensible, was it? However, until the next video, be kind to each other and enjoy the rest of your day.